So we're going to be looking at using data to personalize applications and offers to the guests. And I'm hoping now that we will bring in Thomas from Oracle Nor1, Casper from citizenM, and Gonçalo from Pestana. And there we have Thomas. Hello, Thomas.
Hi, Carl. Good to
and
be
then we
here.
have Casper and Gonçalo. So, Thomas, I assume you're in Frankfurt today?
Yeah, just a little bit outside.
Just outside.
But it's nice. But it's nice and sunny out.
Well, yes, I can see by the light coming. Gonçalo, you are in Portugal, I believe, today in Lisbon?
Sunny weather over here, so all of you are invited to Lisbon and to Portugal.
Yeah, and you'll get a big influx of Brits for the weekend for the Champions League final.
For sure.
Fantastic. Yeah, what a green thing football is. Let's move a whole load of Brits over to Portugal. But great for your industry. And Casper, good morning or good afternoon, probably. Where are you today?
Amsterdam? Yeah, in Amsterdam.
Fantastic. So thank you, all three of you, for joining us today. I'm just going to ask you briefly to introduce yourself, to give us the 30-second pitch on who you are and what you do. Let's start with, on my screen, I've got Thomas, Gonçalo, and Casper. So, Thomas, tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Carl, for the introduction. So my name is Thomas Amann. Really a pleasure being here today and getting the opportunity to speak with you guys and for you guys. I've been with Nor1, who probably many of you are familiar with, for about 8 years now. Prior to that, I worked different ways through the hospitality industry in the United States and Switzerland and Germany. And as for everyone that just joined the recent session with Eric, have already learned probably over the last couple of months, Nor1, we were recently acquired by Oracle Hospitality, and that's my new venture, my new journey now here in Europe. So thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Gonçalo, somebody who's come in from outside of the industry. How interesting.
You're right, Carl. First of all, hello, everyone, and happy to join in. I've been in hospitality for 1 year and a half, just at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, but really excited on this industry. I've worked across a number of industries, from telco to insurance to oil and gas, and it's really challenging industry and at this stage, but really a true pleasure to share some thoughts with you in this talk.
Wow, what a year to join us. And you, Gonçalo, you've got 94 hotels in Pestana. Have I got that right?
That's right. So Pestana is present in 15 countries, mostly in Europe, but also in Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, the United States, Miami and New York, Africa, Morocco, Mozambique, South Africa. And we're also very happy to be present in Amsterdam, where Casper is...
And you've got a very nice hotel on the Chelsea Marina in London, on the harbour there, haven't you?
We do. That's right.
Yeah. And Casper, tell us about yourself in citizenM, working with Michael Levy and the like.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. And I did stay in the Pestana in Amsterdam. I'm Casper. I'm the Chief of Digital and Customer Experience for citizenM. Mainly concerned with all the digital products, our loyalty ambitions, our customer data activation, and our customer service. I have a background at KLM, the airline, and later on bol.com, let's say the Dutch Amazon, as we like to say, the online retailer. A keen interest for anything that moves along the axis of human and digital needs, and really, really pleased to be here today.
Great. Thank you, Casper. Some interesting participants here who come not necessarily directly or grown up in our industry. So the object today is to utilize insights to provide guests high-value personalized services. And what are the challenges in transforming big data into actionable insights, and how your hospitality business can overcome them? And the theme of the angles I'm going to explore with you guys today is one of data, its value, the organization of that data to get its value, and then we need to touch on the regulations, GDPR, the California Consumer Privacy Act, because if you're in the States, it really does affect you now. So let's start on data and its value here. I think the greatest internal value of anything in a business today is its over and above its staff is its value, its data today. So Casper, let's talk a little bit with you. You're right on the front end there, helping the guests check in, book and everything like that. How do you see what you're doing in citizenM? And I know you've got some interestingly different pricing models as well that you're presenting to the world. How do you see this using the data to attract the guest or give them what they want?
Yeah, a very good question. Well, I'd rather take it from the other way around angle. So
Okay.
I rather start by what are the guest and the customer needs today and in the future, and how can citizenM use data to serve it. We are a growing hotel chain. We are now 25 hotels open, but we are opening up to 45 in the next 2 years. And that means that more and more, you have to rely on data to actually get in touch and build relationships with customers. And while doing that, we also look at like what is the way they want to engage with us and what is the way they want to buy citizenM and consume citizenM. And to that end, we have run a number of experiments now leading to several subscription models that we have put live and that we are also going to put live in the near future. And all these is about moving from, let's say, a reservation that is linked to a room to actually customer lifetime value, to see that how does any customer link with us and what is the value for us in euros, but of course also in appreciation. And for that end, we are looking at pricing models that will support just that.
So you've done the research, you've tested the market, you've looked at your data, and you come to a conclusion, this is what the customers want. Is that the way I understand it? Have I got that right?
Yeah, so I think loyalty on itself is still fully alive, also in COVID, because what we see is that brands that people relate to, they tend to get back to. But the way they want to interact with us is no longer through points or anything. They just want to have something instant and to show their commitment and have something in return for it. And that's what we found out during the subscription models. We launched a global passport and we launched a corporate subscription, that there's a key need for, let's say, stronger commitment, also a transactional commitment to us in exchange for a good deal or perks. And we feel that the market is ready. Of course, we're still waiting for the big global business travel to kick back in, but the first signals are very positive.
Thank you, Casper. Gonçalo, you've got a number of hotels across the world in different regions and different languages. What are the challenges and how can hotel guests individualize guests in different markets? The word personalization comes to mind here. How does this work? And the technology that you as a CIO have to build in underneath it.
Thank you, Carl. Very, very interesting question. Let me start off by also thanking Casper. I've stayed at citizenM in London, so also very happy to have stayed there. Very interesting question. And if you go back to what Eric was mentioning just the session before, let me start off by making 2 or 3 points there. The first one is, as an industry, we have a lot of data. It's not one of those industries where you take pride in knowing stuff about your guests, right? And I find it surprising that the amount of data that we have, we don't use it actionably to get that personalization that you're describing. But a great deal of that data is not in systems that you can take out and use in a proficient way. It's a very high cost maintenance data that we have. And let me start off by giving 1 or 2 examples that we find across in our hotel chain. The repeating business of our guests, it's quite significant. And in the front desk, I have a lot of people that know who that guest is, what he likes, how often he comes, why he skipped that summer but will be back on the next summer, what's the size of the family, who the family is, all of that. And as a CIO, I don't know that. I don't have a place to put it. I don't capture that in a very proficient way. I don't use it. I'm not going to say we are in the dark ages. We are much better than that. But we don't really capture to the full extent what we could from our data profiles and our systems. And why is that? As an industry, we're still trying to learn what drives the value, and Casper touched upon it. What are the true needs of our customer, where we can drive that data to use it in a way that the guest will value it and will be able to share that data, to keep it updated. And that value, it's probably at the core of what we do. We're not just giving a place to sleep.
Yeah.
We're giving much more than that. I mean, and we take, again, pride on that. So going back to systems and how to manage, I'll use this expression a lot. We have a challenge for us is to OTAs, the different channels that people use to get into our unit, our own data from when they stay or pre-stay, during the stay, post-stay, the preferences. How do you integrate that into a single coherent approach into our guest? If you don't do that, any kind of personalization that you use will be not real. It's going to be a bit of the experience you give the guest will be a bit fake, if I may use the word.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound right. I mean, the guest will say, "Come on, guys, you know a bit more of me than this. You know I have children, or you know I'm a business traveler and a resort travel also." And you need to get across that threshold. You need to make it really, each one of us as a person likes to be touched in a way that you think or that you perceive as this was developed for me, and they know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Of course, you then touch upon, and you probably will ask that question, we'll touch upon privacy issues and how to do it in a compliant way. I didn't touch upon this at this stage, but yeah, that's the big challenge that we have. And clearly move from just an experience that you can have in a bricks and mortar kind of setup to a much more personalized experience before, during, and after the stay, and that really captures the information on that person.
Great. Thank you very much. Thomas, you've been in this area of when the guest comes and giving them those upsellable items or putting it in front of them, which I guess also relates to, the never-ending, I'm going to say, challenge of dealing with things like OTAs. How do you see this this kind of area for hotels? How can they best utilize it with the data they must already have, albeit possibly in various silos?
Thank you. Good question. And I guess I could go in different directions here, but I guess starting with what we heard from Eric, how he finished the previous session around artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics, right? Which is kind of what we have been in the marketplace known for many years, and which is just one of the many reasons, right? It was kind of the perfect match for us in Oracle to kind of work much closer together and be integrated with one another natively. But how we supported hotels over the years and do today is initially, right, even without a huge set of access to data, is by applying this artificial intelligence, right? By taking real-time data that we have from each guest, which is what do we receive in the reservation, right, in real-time data? At what price point did the guest book the room, right? Through what channel? All of these variables that we already have. And then you can certainly not directly personalize an offer, but you can already start to segment, right? And that's sometimes what I think hotels that don't know where their data sits or don't know how to act upon it, they try to chase their tail, trying to personalize everything and everyone, even though many times by starting to segment, that's a really good and strong start. And then I guess to your questions around OTAs, still a big challenge out there today for many hoteliers. And I think I've spoken to hoteliers over the years many times around this topic. And surprisingly, many hoteliers are still actually not even aware of the fact that they can actively communicate with OTA reservations and guests, therefore, in the pre-arrival stage, while the guest is on site, right, and all of these things. I mean, I think advanced hospitality solutions today should all, and likely most do, have a feature called Match and Merge, which is, I think, very important for OTA reservations, where a challenge for hotels in the past has been, you get this OTA reservation and you don't have much information in it in the first place, right? You don't usually get the guest real email address, right? You don't get much personal information. And then your system creates a new profile for that guest. And then most hotels digitally in the pre-arrival stage don't touch that reservation until someone assigns the guest to a room and the guest checks in. And then you can only be hopeful that you trained your staff well enough to actually capture the email address at check-in and maybe capture something about why they're here for. But again, Match and Merge, it helps you to then merge that profile of that guest that likely previously stayed with you before at one of your properties. And that's really powerful. But again, hotels, the ability to actually communicate with OTA bookings prior to arrival is very powerful, and we help and support hotels with that. But you'll be surprised with how many hotels and hoteliers don't actually know the power that they have and the abilities they have to communicate with those guests prior to arrival.
Well, that is the whole point of the debate today, isn't it? Is to emphasize the value you already have. Casper, citizenM, you've got a lot of technology. You have a lot of technology from the very first citizenM in Amsterdam, and you've got a lot of technology right through to stay. And we're trying to personalize based on some data. Where do you see the balance between the technology and the staff and the guests, if that makes sense? Can guests come right the way through to a citizenM hotel with just the technology, or do you see there a balance in there somewhere?
Yeah, good question. Well, first of all, I would really like to second what Thomas is saying about his observation on hospitality. And since I'm relatively new in it, I fully recognize it coming from a world of e-commerce where everything is data. And then in hospitality, actually a lot is data as well. But the way we use it or the way we want to use it, we're still growing. When it comes to your question, so what we have done at citizenM, we have said, okay, we want to go to a digital first setup without losing our genuine touch and our human touch in the hotel. So that means that if you want to go to a hotel, you can go all digital, but we still want there to be someone that welcomes you and makes you feel at home from the beginning till the end when you go back home. For that, there is like a back-end and a front-end challenge. The front-end challenge is how do you create a digital product stack that actually allows that. So that means for us, it's the app that allows you to check in and organize everything, control your rooms, but it's also the kiosk if you don't feel comfortable using the app. It's the iPad that we have in the room to control your room, and well, all the way from booking till the post-stay, we are now organizing it in a digital way, all up to the choice of the customer, because he or she can also choose to interact with our lovely staff. But the back end to support it, I think it's even more challenging, because that's where exactly all the things that Thomas just said are coming up. Like, how do you recognize them? How do you make sure that you allow also OTA guests to make use of these digital solutions, because that's what we want, and all that. So what we found is now actually a way to merge those backend with our customer data platform and the front end with our guest-facing tools and devices that got awarded again last week in the Netherlands, which was great. But in the end, I think it's all about making guests feel at home and to be able to identify their needs, what they need from the moment that they want to book or when they come in. So I think that the sweet spot is in that, for instance, the check-in moment, guests check in at a kiosk and there's still someone standing next to them, helping, welcoming, how was your trip? Can I do anything for you? Now that we have the app, we are looking at how we can keep that moment the same. Also not taking away staff and all that. We do not do it for efficiency. But yeah, welcome like your best friends welcomes you at home. Like it's a place where you know where the fridge is, where you can walk on your socks if you want. But there's still someone opening the door. And that's what we want. So we want to be able to recognize our best friends.
Yeah.
And for that, we use data, and we have to use data more and more now because we cannot rely on recognizing the faces only anymore. And at the same time, that data should also allow us to do the right interventions if needed. Also, and maybe you get to that later, for the way employees can use it for their on their ambassador device as we developed it.
Yeah. It's an interesting balance between the two. I stayed in your lovely hotel with that lovely rooftop bar in at London Bridge, or Tower Bridge rather. And one night the iPad wouldn't work to control the TV, and oh my God, I can't control my TV. The iPad's not working. It just happens. And the member of staff said, you can use the normal remote control. Remote control. I hadn't thought of that. I was so busy focusing on my iPad, so it's getting that balance right and reminding you where you are. That's great, Casper. Thank you very much. Gonçalo, one of the things I mentioned at the beginning is, and I think Casper and Thomas have alluded to it, is you've actually got to organize your data. You've got to have it in the right place, because if you haven't got the pieces together, you can't see the trends. And as Casper was talking about integrating the front of house data, the marketing with the back of house. And I'm aware in some parts of the industry, we have this phrase shadow IT, where there's as many people working in the marketing department on IT as there is in the IT department. Because there's so much going on there. How have you found it in Pestana, and how are you approaching this sort of getting the data into the right place as a technology professional?
Great question, Carl. I mean, Casper just this back office and front office linkage is quite critical, right? And in one way, let me start by saying this: shadow IT. Some people say shadow IT is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I mean, people need to solve their problems. I mean, they need to address their challenges. You need to cope with that. I mean, you need to embrace it and regulate it. Of course, if you don't, it's a problem. And so I'm quite fond of this concept that we are using and experimenting at Pestana of data fabric architecture. I think it was coined by Gartner some point ago, and I do recognize that companies like Oracle Hospitality is already on that path, and Thomas was giving good examples of that. What is it? The first thing that I recognize that we need to do very well is to activate metadata correctly. So when you speak of shadow IT, some of our guys, what they're doing is just trying to have some kind of engine to do some campaigns, marketing campaigns on email campaigns, and that is using our metadata. So I need to have a reasonably good setup to activate that metadata, namely the one coming from RTAs, as Thomas was describing. And it's a really valid point. I'm speaking of Pestana. If we go back 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't use it.
Yeah.
And of course, we can, if we speak in 2 or 3 years from now, we'll be using it even more, right? But you need to start a journey. I mean, you need to interact with those guests that are arriving from there. So that's number one on the data fabric architecture. The second one is, and I'm being a bit too technical here, but the second one is quite critical. You need to have a robust data integration backbone. If you don't do that, what's the point of having all of that data if it doesn't integrate seamlessly. And that allows for the bad shadow IT. I mean, if the guy in marketing says, I have this file here with the name of the guests that have arrived last month, I'll use that. It's not foolproof. It might have duplicates on that. It might have, but it's what I have. So robust data integration backbone is key for you. Where you try to do what also Thomas was saying, you try to capture at least what you have in the company, what's there, and use that correctly. And finally, analyzing all forms of metadata. And here Eric was mentioning that, and Thomas just did. You need to move into machine learning. I try not to use the word artificial intelligence.
Well, it is different, isn't it?
It's different. And some people think artificial intelligence is science fiction stuff, and it's not. It's not. There are different things there, and so I'll try to stick to machine learning just to make it comfortable. Start using some machine learning. And again, Thomas gave a good example that we are doing at Pestana. Profiling. You need to consolidate the guest profiles in a way, merge those in a way that is intelligent. We just did, I mean, this year, 2021, the pandemic helped us. I mean, less things to do with guests, so let's
a bit more time to analyze.
Let's do some of the it's impressive the kind of trash that you have in your systems always that you need to clean up, and those merging those functionalities that Thomas are really critical. And if you don't do that, that kind of data fabric architecture will not be achievable. Another one that we are trying to explore, and this is a bit cutting edge at this stage at this company, is semantic knowledge graphs, where you try to capture. It's really hard to ask a guest, what are your preferences? People will say what they think, and then how do you capture that in a way that everyone understands? I may say that I like the sunny weather at some point, and then I might say I like to visit the beach, and how do you capture that in a way that we can translate in our approach with the guest, again during the stay, but also after the stay and pre-stay. So we're trying to experiment with that, so that you can build some kind of clusters of information on what guests are seeking or trying to experience in our hotels.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Quite interesting for us. And let me finish here. Shadow IT also is when I was saying let's embrace it, Shadow IT is also a good testing ground for some stuff. Okay.
Yeah. Give
it 5%, or allow it to happen, to blossom a bit. It can be a good testing ground for. It's not the approach that will solve everything, but it can be a good testing ground when we're exploring data. Now the challenge is GDPR, privacy.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to extend myself too much now, but Shadow IT cannot be a way of going around what is key on that. So that needs to be safeguarded.
Thank you very much. By the way, your point about looking at the pictures, as an ex-finance person, I must say a picture's worth 1,000 words sometimes when you look at these trends, and sometimes something will jump out of you. So Thomas, Gonçalo has handed us the ball with the skull and crossbones on it, that we're all afraid of, or the hot potato of GDPR and the California Consumer Privacy Act. And I think you've got some expertise in this area, given what you've done. talk to us a little bit about how this all affects, or does it stop us doing things? Sometimes people just stop communicating or won't communicate and things. How do we build in the privacy acts into what we're doing and still provide a personalized service?
Yeah, good question. So my experience clearly stems from the third-party provider, technology provider side rather than the hotel company side. But having worked with many of the global hotel companies as well as regional brands and chains over the years, I would say there is a little bit of experience that comes from that. But I think the one big challenge that will continue and that will remain, right, is of course the uncertainty about what's the next big thing, right? What will happen next and what will change, and where in the world do you have to now comply with something different, and what is the UK going to do? But certainly GDPR, I think it's something that everyone is familiar with, especially since May 25th, 2018.
Yeah.
Not many hotel companies were prepared, right? Not to say that the technology providers were well prepared, because it was really difficult to say what to prepare for. But I think the bottom line, after we've seen GDPR, is that most hotel companies, at least the ones that we worked with, have adapted. They also share information, right? And they have really adapted the way, when you look at the privacy policies that are out there today, that ultimately the business that you've been doing before and that you're doing now can still be the same. The way you communicate with guests, you can still leverage the same features and ways of communication, but you just have to, hotel companies had to adopt their ways. And for us, ultimately, it's being a data processor, right? And it's certainly, I gotta admit, it's somewhat easier being in the global cloud of being part of Oracle, where you do comply with the gold standards. It's a much easier conversation to have with a hotel company than maybe being a small startup somewhere in the world, where you have to really explain, right, where your data is flowing and where it is processed, etc. So for hotel companies, there has been some type of consolidation of number of third parties work with, right? What can we do in-house? And maybe actually ask your vendors, you big vendors, right, that provide the big part of your tech stack, what else can you actually provide and bring to the table? Because I think I've learned that along the way with many forward-thinking hospitality third-party companies, they have much more to offer than sometimes the hotels and the companies are aware of. And I know that there is still a value in a startup and what they can bring to the table, but it certainly hasn't gotten easier since things like GDPR. So I think the consolidation in the number of companies that are being worked with has happened. But overall, I think the business we have been doing with hotels before May 25th, 2018 and after hasn't much changed, but the work around it is much more complex and sophisticated. So
there's a new set of rules, isn't it? So I'm going to ask you each just very, very briefly, because we've only got a minute or two left. I'll start with you, Thomas, as you're, if you like, on camera already. A picture of the future dealing with the guest and where technology may go. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in short, it's like with many things that we've talked about, or many things in life, it's that fine line, right? It's having worked myself in the hotel industry, right? Front line, right? Specifically in the luxury part of the business, right? You gotta keep that component of the human touch, right? But I've heard it being mentioned twice before. What we really bring to the table and what really drives value is the machine learning predictive analytics part, which you can take that, analyze the data, analyze what the guest is giving you via behavior profiling. How do the guests interact with offers in the pre-arrival stage, right before booking, at the time of checking, and you can hand that at the fingertips of the agents, of the concierge, even of the housekeeping staff, right? And now pair artificial intelligence, right, the big word, with the true guest profile, right, which you get with cloud-based infrastructure technology, and at the core of it, the PMS. That's really powerful. that combination, but it ultimately remains that balance between technology that will help and make things easier and automate things, and we're already doing that today, and the human touch.
Just more so. Okay, Gonçalo, quick picture of the future.
Thomas was so good in explaining that I'm just going to highlight one of his.
Agree with Thomas. Yeah, exactly.
And it touches upon this issue of PMS. I mean, we have been looking at the PMS as a repository of information, not really as an engine to stuff.
Yeah.
I think Oracle has been probably at the forefront of what to do with the PMS in this. So to your question, yeah, I see technology. There are gimmicks and nice things, the apps and all of that, and the way you can interact, but it also changes.
Yeah.
And you need to structure that use of technology grounded in a very strong PMS that can use whatever channel there is for the future.
Good advice, because changing your PMS is or looking at your PMS is a cultural thing, isn't it? As much as the system. Casper, the final word to you. A little bit of the future.
I find it extremely hard to predict the future, especially in this day and age. What I can do is share a little bit of what is on the agenda for citizenM when it comes to the data. So first of all, we will take further steps on personalization and also connecting partners to it. I think based on all we discussed, it now becomes possible for us. I'm really interested in the AI or machine learning part of it, and I would love to learn more about it. Second part is that we will use it to expand our business models even further. As I said, subscription or anything that really builds a connection with our guest, we will need the data there. The third one is that we want to focus on the employee satisfaction, because we also believe that employee satisfaction, employee efficiency can benefit more. And the last one that I would like to mention is our green agenda, or on our ESG. We see the pressure is increasing by our customers, by our investors, by everyone, and let alone the planet itself. And we believe that data can help us a lot on the usage or footprint, on how we can become more conscious in our use of the hotels and how we can accommodate conscious travelers. So these are things where we are sort of the four most prominent domains on our agenda for when it comes to data and how it will support our business in general.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. I lost a bit of Casper's sound there at the end, so I'm very sorry. I'm hoping you can hear me. Thumbs up if you can. Fantastic. Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Thomas, Gonçalo, and Casper, thank you very much for your time today. Very illuminating. Thank you for coming in from all points west. And thank you very much indeed. So we will move on to our final session of the day, and I'm hoping I will be able to hear my next speaker. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll have Michael Marini from Edwardian coming on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.